My dad looked me dead in the eyes across the dinner table and said, "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything back." What he didn't realize was that by the time he finished that sentence, I had already decided I was done being their safety net. If you've ever been the one everyone leans on until you break, subscribe, because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop saving people. My name's Tessa. I'm 32, and for most of my life, I believed my role in this family was simple: fix things. Not because anyone asked nicely, but because nobody else would. I wasn't the favorite. That was Lauren, my older sister, the successful one, the one with the psychology practice and the carefully curated life that looked perfect from the outside. I wasn't the baby either. That was Cody, perpetually figuring things out, perpetually in crisis, perpetually one step away from needing help. I was the middle child, which meant I became the bridge, the patch, the quiet solution nobody acknowledged. Growing up, I thought that was normal. Lauren got praise, Cody got protection, and I got responsibility. If something broke, I handled it. If someone needed money, I figured it out. If tensions ran high, I smoothed it over. Not because I was forced, but because someone had to. And over time, it stopped being a choice. It became an expectation. It started small. Lauren's grad school gap, Cody's first apartment deposit, Dad's dental procedure insurance wouldn't fully cover, Mom's credit card balance after she helped Cody out. Always temporary, always urgent, always framed as family helping family. And at first, I was proud. I had a stable job in operations for a logistics company, decent salary, no kids, no partner, flexible enough to step in when needed. So I did. Again and again and again. Until stepping in stopped feeling generous and started feeling mandatory. 6 years ago, Lauren opened her practice. It was supposed to be self-sustaining, but early months were slow. So I helped with rent, just until her client base grew. Then the furniture, then the marketing software, then the insurance shortfall. Each time framed as just until things stabilize. They never stabilized. Not really, because stability had a backup plan. Me. Cody's needs were louder. Job loss, car trouble, a roommate who bailed, late utilities, always emergencies, always immediate, always this one last time. I stopped counting after the 3rd year because keeping score felt selfish, and I didn't want to be selfish. That word carried weight in our house. Selfish people didn't get included. Dad framed everything like this was how families worked. You help when you can, and you don't keep track. So, I didn't. I co-signed Cody's car lease, covered Lauren's malpractice insurance during a slow quarter, paid off Mom's credit card after a temporary spending spiral, loaned Dad money when his retirement investment dipped. Never asked for repayment, never asked for recognition, because love wasn't supposed to be transactional. At least, that's what I told myself. The first crack came 2 years ago. Lauren upgraded her office. Bigger space, better location, new furniture. She didn't ask for help, she assumed it. Mentioned cash flow was tight, mentioned timing was tricky, mentioned she might need to delay expansion. Dad looked at me across the table. "You're in a good position right now, Tess." Not a question, a reminder. And I nodded, because saying no would have made me the obstacle. Cody followed 3 months later. Behind on rent again, landlord threatening eviction. I covered 2 months, then utilities, then groceries, all framed as temporary, all framed as necessary. And each time I told myself, this is what family does. The resentment didn't show up as anger, it showed up as exhaustion, in small ways. Like skipping a vacation because Lauren's insurance payment was due, or postponing replacing my car because Cody's transmission failed, or delaying moving into a bigger place because Mom needed help consolidating debt. My life became adjustable. Theirs stayed intact. Still, I didn't break, until last Thanksgiving. Dad insisted on hosting, but the cost landed on me. Catering, groceries, decor. Even the new patio heater Lauren thought would make the backyard feel elevated. I paid for all of it. No one mentioned it, no one offered, no one acknowledged. Dinner was loud. Lauren talked about her expansion plans. Cody joked about finally moving somewhere cooler. Mom discussed a kitchen refresh. Dad gave a toast. To family, he said. To always being there for each other. And everyone nodded. Like that statement didn't rest entirely on me. I stayed quiet, like always, until dessert, when Lauren casually mentioned her second location might open sooner than expected. Dad smiled. That's great. Then looked at me. You'll help her get there. Not can, not would, will. And something inside me shifted, just slightly. Not anger, recognition. But the real break came a week later. Cody's rent was due again. Lauren needed malpractice insurance renewed. Mom's credit card was maxed out. Dad's prescription coverage had a gap. All in the same week, all urgent, all necessary. And when I hesitated, just hesitated, Dad noticed. We were in the kitchen, just the two of us. He didn't yell at first. He sighed, like I was disappointing him. You've got to stop acting like this is a burden. I blinked. I didn't say it was. You don't have to, he replied. Then came the line. Sharp. Final. All you do is take. You've never given this family anything back. The room went silent. Not because it was loud, because it landed clean, precise, undeniable. And in that moment, something ended. Not with drama, not with anger, just clarity. Because I realized something terrifying. No amount of giving would ever count, because the system only worked if I kept giving. So I didn't argue, didn't defend myself, didn't list everything I'd done. I just nodded. And that night, I stopped. Not dramatically, not publicly, just quietly. I paused every automatic transfer, every recurring payment, every temporary support stream, and waited. Because the real truth about dependency, you don't see it until the support disappears. The first week, nothing happened. No calls, no questions, no panic. Because systems built on quiet support don't collapse overnight. They wobble first. And the wobble started with Lauren. She texted on Monday morning, "Hey, my insurance payment didn't go through. Bank issue?" Casual, assuming, like a glitch had interrupted something that naturally belonged to her. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, just silence. By Wednesday, Cody called. Not to check in, not to ask how I was, straight to the point. My rent bounced. Did something happen with the account? Something, like this was weather. I let the phone ring out, because explaining would have turned this into a negotiation, and I wasn't negotiating anymore. Friday was when it shifted. Mom called 3 times, then left a voicemail. "Tessa, honey, I think there's been a mistake with the card. It got declined at the grocery store." Mistake. Always a mistake. Never an assumption. Never an entitlement. Still, I didn't respond, because the truth didn't require explanation. It required experience. The second week brought the first crack. Lauren showed up at my apartment. No warning, no text, just knocking. When I opened the door, she was already irritated. "My malpractice renewal is due tomorrow," she said. No greeting, no concern, just urgency. "I know," I replied. She blinked. "What do you mean you know?" "I mean, I know when it's due." She waited, expecting the follow-up, the reassurance, the fix. It didn't come. Her tone sharpened. So, nothing. The confusion hit first, then disbelief. "You're just not going to help?" There it was. Not can't, not would you. Help was assumed. I stayed calm. No. That word landed harder than anything I could have explained. Lauren stared at me like I'd spoken another language. Why? Simple question, but the answer wasn't simple. Because this wasn't about one payment. It was about years, patterns, expectation disguised as love. So I gave her the only honest answer. Because I'm done. Her face changed. Not sadness, not hurt, shock. "You can't just decide that. Watch me." I already did. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She did something worse. She laughed. Short, dismissive. "This is ridiculous. Dad was right." And there it was. Confirmation. The narrative had already formed. I wasn't setting boundaries. I was failing. "You're being selfish," she said. That word, again, the family verdict. I didn't argue, because arguing would have meant I still needed their understanding. I didn't. She left with a final line over her shoulder. "You're going to regret this." Cody was next, less composed, more direct. He called that night. "What the hell is going on? I'm not covering things anymore." Silence. Then, "You're screwing me over." No reflection, no curiosity, just blame. "I didn't create your situation," I replied. "You're making it worse." No, I was removing the buffer, which felt the same to him. "You'll figure it out," I said. He hung up. By the third week, reality arrived. Lauren's renewal lapsed. Cody got a late notice. Mom started juggling bills. Dad's prescription gap became immediate instead of theoretical. And that's when the tone changed. The calls weren't casual anymore. They were sharp, demanding, urgent. Mom cried. Cody accused. Lauren lectured. Dad stayed silent, which was worse, because silence meant calculation. Then came the confrontation. Sunday dinner. Summoned, not invited. I went, because avoidance would have allowed the story to form without me. When I arrived, the atmosphere was already charged. Lauren sat rigid. Cody paced. Mom looked exhausted. Dad stood by the counter, waiting. No small talk, no pleasantries. Dad spoke first. "What are you doing?" Not why, not how, just what. "Stopping," I said. "Stopping what?" "Everything that isn't mine." Cody scoffed. "You think this makes you strong?" "No, it made me free." Lauren leaned forward. "You're hurting everyone." There it was again. Impact framed as aggression. "I'm not hurting anyone," I said. "I'm just not fixing things anymore." Dad's jaw tightened. "This family has always supported each other." No, this family had relied on one person, and that person had finally stepped back. "You called me selfish," I reminded him quietly. His eyes flashed. "That's because you are." No hesitation, no reconsideration, still convinced. And for the first time, that didn't break me. It clarified everything. Because this wasn't about misunderstanding, it was about entitlement. Mom spoke through tears. "We're struggling." I believed her. But struggle isn't injustice. It's reality without a safety net. "I know," I said, and meant it. Lauren's voice hardened. "So you're just abandoning us?" "No, I was abandoning the system. I'm letting everyone stand on their own." Cody shook his head. "You've changed." "Yes, finally." Dad stepped closer. "This isn't how family works." I met his gaze. "No," I said calmly. "This is exactly how family works when one person stops carrying the rest." Silence fell. Heavy, uncomfortable, unavoidable. Because for the first time, there was no immediate solution, no quick transfer, no quiet fix, just consequences. And this time, they belonged to the people who created them. But what none of them realized yet was how deep the dependence actually ran, because the real unraveling hadn't even started. The real chaos began the next morning. I woke to 20 missed calls, half from Mom, a few from Lauren, and one from Dad that made my stomach knot. Cody hadn't called yet, probably pacing in frustration somewhere, waiting for someone to bail him out. I didn't answer a single call. Instead, I made coffee, sat at the window, and let the notifications pile up. It was oddly calming. For years, I'd been on high alert. The phone buzzing meant problems, emergencies, requests, dramas. Now it meant silence and space to think. I didn't have to fix anything. By the second day, the panic started bleeding through. Lauren texted, "Tessa, please, this is serious. My office insurance is overdue. I'll lose my license. You can't just stop." I read it and didn't respond. Not because I wanted to hurt her, because she needed to learn, not me. By Wednesday, the consequences rippled out. Lauren's renewal lapsed. She had to take an emergency loan at a high interest rate from a friend. Cody's rent bounced. The landlord locked the door until payment cleared. A $150 late fee stacked on top. Mom called me in tears, sobbing about the credit cards and how she didn't know how she'd pay the mortgage next month. And Dad? He didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't email. He just simmered in frustration, probably calculating his next move to manipulate me. But the most satisfying part wasn't chaos. It was realization. Because for the first time, they were completely exposed. The invisible scaffolding I had been providing for years, gone.
A week later, Lauren tried confrontation. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, walking in as if she had the right. "Tessa," she said, voice tight, controlled. "We need to talk. You can't just abandon us." "I'm not abandoning anyone," I replied calmly. "I'm stopping being the solution to problems you created." She blinked, flustered. "But it's too much. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly, and that's the problem. I understood too well for too long, and now I'm done." Her expression shifted. The confident, calm exterior cracked, revealing panic, disbelief, and finally anger. "You're being selfish. You've changed." "Yes," I said, "and I finally mean it." She left in a huff, slamming the door. I didn't care. For once, my life didn't hinge on someone else's drama. Cody called next, furious. "You can't just let me fail. That's insane." "I'm not letting you fail. I'm letting you learn consequences. You've been living like my bank account was permanent credit." "You're cruel," he said. "This is cruel." I let it sit, let it sink, let him wrestle with the fact that I was no longer the automatic fix. The first confrontation with Dad came a week later at home. He cornered me in the kitchen when I came by to pick up some old files. "Tessa," he said, voice low, sharp, like a blade under his calm exterior. "We need to talk now. This is getting out of hand. You can't keep doing this to your family." I looked at him for a long moment. His usual mask of authority and control was cracking. "I'm not doing anything to anyone," I said. "I'm doing what I should have done years ago. Stop carrying your mistakes." "You're punishing us," he spat. "No," I said. "I'm reclaiming myself, and for the first time, you're going to deal with reality." His jaw tightened. I could see the calculations in his eyes, the silent debate of how to regain control, but there was nothing left for him to manipulate. The following month was brutal. Lauren's practice nearly collapsed. She scrambled to cover her expenses, and clients noticed delays. Cody's credit score tanked. His car got repossessed. He had to move back in with Mom temporarily. Mom started budgeting, painfully. She realized the temporary help had been years long, not a minor blip. Dad? His pride crumbled slowly. He didn't ask for money anymore. He only complained under his breath. They had always believed they could rely on me without question, but once the lifeline was gone, reality hit hard. And yet, I didn't feel glee. I didn't post updates or relish their chaos. I only watched from a distance, quietly. I let them stumble because it was the only way they could truly see what they had taken for granted. It was not revenge. It was necessary education. 6 weeks in, Lauren sent a final email. "I don't know what's wrong with you. This isn't normal. You've hurt everyone you claim to love." I printed it and filed it. Not to punish, not to lecture, just to preserve the proof. Because one day, if they tried to rewrite the story, the truth would exist somewhere undeniable. By week 8, the collapse was total. Lauren had to take a short-term business loan at double interest. Cody lost another job due to transportation issues after the car was repossessed. Mom missed a mortgage payment and faced penalties. Dad realized the old system had depended entirely on my labor, patience, and finances. And finally, slowly, reluctantly, awareness set in. At the 3-month mark, I returned home briefly. Not for reconciliation, not to apologize, just to collect my belongings, archive old documents, and witness the aftermath. The house smelled the same. Mom's candles, Dad's faint cologne, Cody's sneakers by the door. But it didn't feel like home. Because home is where you belong, and for years, I had only been a caretaker, not a participant. I walked through the living room, noting the faded furniture I had helped maintain, the family photos I had taken but were never framed for me. The silence was deafening. No one approached me. No one asked why I'd stayed away. No one apologized for assuming my labor was limitless. And in that silence, I felt freedom. Freedom I didn't realize I was denying myself all those years. By then, Dad finally spoke. "Tessa, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't just—" "I'm not your solution," I said. "You don't understand," he muttered. "I understand perfectly. You relied on me and you never treated me like a person. You treated me like a tool. That stops now." He didn't respond, and for the first time, his silence meant something. Because the system he had built, one where my labor and money were endless, had finally collapsed. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. Not about the money, not about the lies, not about the entitlement. I was sad, yes, it had taken years to see the truth, but mostly, I was finally free. And in freedom, I realized something even more powerful. The strongest gift you can give some people isn't money, support, or advice. It's withdrawal, the absence that forces them to see themselves. Because only then do they finally understand what they took for granted.
By the time I left my parents' house that day, I knew nothing would ever be the same, for them or for me. I packed a single bag and drove to a small apartment I had been saving for months. Not a fancy place, just a space of my own, free of expectation, free of entitlement. Every step I took away from the family home felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost. The first weeks were quiet, almost eerily so. No calls, no frantic messages, no accusations, just stillness. And it was glorious. I slept without anxiety clawing at my chest. I cooked for myself without compromise. I even laughed, small, soft laughs that had been foreign for years, without guilt attached. I could finally think clearly. Meanwhile, the fallout back home intensified. Lauren's malpractice insurance lapsed entirely. She scrambled to find loans, high-interest options that barely kept her afloat. Cody's rent continued to bounce, and his car remained in the tow yard. He moved back in with Mom, defeated and frustrated. Mom started meticulously budgeting, the kind of real budgeting I had begged her to do for years. Dad, of course, remained stubborn, refusing to admit that the system they had built depended entirely on me. But cracks were showing, subtle, undeniable cracks. The first time I smiled at the news, when Dad called my old accountant, panicked over a missed wire transfer I had never set up. Then came the legal realization. A few weeks after my withdrawal, I consulted my attorney, Vanessa, about the informal loans I had given my parents over the years. Wire transfers, checks, documented promises, all of it. "You're essentially owed a small fortune," Vanessa said, barely hiding a smirk, "and you have every right to collect." I didn't collect for revenge, I collected for clarity. If they ever tried to claim entitlement or rewrite the story, now there was undeniable proof. Every dollar, every loan, every support transfer was documented. 3 months in, I returned home briefly, not for reconciliation, not for apology, just to see. The house felt empty, hollow, the familiar smells, the faded furniture, the photos that had never included me, all still there, but they weren't home. Cody sat on the couch, looking smaller, frustrated, defeated. Lauren was on her laptop, tense, running numbers, panicked over the next client. Mom was quietly in the kitchen, calculating bills she hadn't managed in years. Dad sat silently in his recliner, jaw tight, pride shattered but unyielding. I walked through the living room slowly, letting the silence stretch. No one greeted me. No one asked why I'd stayed away. They were learning the lesson I had only just delivered in full. When your support system disappears, reality hits hard. The confrontation came quietly in the kitchen. "Dad, Tessa, we need to talk." Me, "I'm not your solution anymore." Dad's jaw clenched. "You don't understand. Families help each other." I stared him down. "You relied on me for years, and you never treated me like a person. You treated me like a tool. That ends now." Lauren's voice broke from behind me. "You can't do this. You're hurting everyone." I turned to her. "I've been helping you for years. You never thanked me. You lied to strangers for money instead of seeing the truth. And now the consequences are yours to manage." Mom looked at me through tears. "We're desperate. You're our daughter." "Yes, and I'm done being the safety net. You're finally going to face reality without me fixing it." By the time I left, it was final. I didn't argue, I didn't yell, I didn't post updates or call attention to their chaos. I walked out quietly, locked the door behind me, and felt an unfamiliar weight lift from my chest. The following months were surreal. Lauren's practice nearly collapsed, but she managed to stabilize it, at a cost she never would have faced if I had intervened. Cody eventually found work again, but had to start from scratch, rebuilding credit, reputation, independence. Mom adjusted her spending, her lifestyle, and her expectations, painfully but steadily.
Dad, for the first time in decades, had no leverage, no silent manipulator, no automatic lifeline. He could only watch, powerless, as the system he relied on crumbled. And me? I thrived. I moved to a smaller loft downtown, cozy, mine, with no hidden bills, no obligations, no guilt. I traveled, explored hobbies I had shelved for years, and began planning a life not tied to family crises. Every morning I woke up and realized freedom feels heavier than responsibility, but lighter than guilt. The final confrontation came in an unexpected form. One afternoon, I received a certified letter from Dad, formal, typed, sterile. We are formally requesting a meeting to discuss the breakdown of our family dynamic. I laughed quietly. Vanessa read it over my shoulder. Do you want me to reply? I nodded. Remind them emotional entitlement isn't a legal claim. And that was the end of it. No apologies, no attempts to guilt me, no attempts to rewrite history, just silence and finally, closure. A year later, I received a single email from Lauren. Tessa, I don't expect a reply. I just want to say I understand now. I'm sorry for everything. I archived it, not out of spite, not to punish, but because I no longer needed closure from them. I had already gotten it from myself. For the first time in my life, I realized the truth. The people who claim to love you can only take what you allow, and sometimes the greatest gift you can give is not money, not time, not forgiveness. It's absence, because only then do they see who you really are, not a tool, not a safety net, not a depositable resource, but a person. And when that realization hits, it changes everything.